This is the Shades of Green radio show, featuring the latest in technology, money-saving ideas, legislative updates, and all things green. The Shades of Green radio show is presented by the Green Alliance. Now here's your hosts, Paul Ira and Stan Hamill.
Good morning. This is Shades of Green radio show, simulcast on KDWN 720 AM and KDWN 101.FM here in Las Vegas. Our show is produced by Green Alliance and sponsored by NV Energy, and I am your host, Paul Ira. Today's guest is Assemblyman Chris Brooks from District 10. Chris, are you with us?
I am. Good morning.
Good morning. Glad to have you with us today. Let me kick this off with a little statement. Saturday was a Marine Corps birthday. Can I get a hoorah?
Hoorah.
And today is Veterans Day, and we would like to thank all the veterans that made the personal sacrifice that allows us to do this show today and live in a wonderful country. Our thanks to those before us and those after us, and to those who never returned. And just a moment of silence for those guys and gals who made the ultimate sacrifice. So today we are talking with Mr. Brooks, and congratulations on the election, my friend.
Oh, thank you so much.
Good to have you back. It's good to have a good voice where you're sitting, and I appreciate it. I know our listeners and everyone in Nevada appreciates it. So today we're going to talk about the legislative session, what's coming up, what's happened in the past. We're going to start with introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about where you've been with legislature and with politics and where you hope we're going.
Well, thank you for having me this morning. Chris Brooks, I represent the 10th Assembly District. Again, as of 6 days ago, I was reelected. The 10th Assembly District is the center of Las Vegas, from the Clark County Government Center and Smith Center all the way to Rainbow, and from Spring Mountain to Vegas Drive. And it's the district where I was raised. I've been in the energy business my entire career, starting as a apprentice helper to a lineman when in my grandfather's company when I was a teenager, through starting the first solar company, running the biggest solar company in the state, doing the first utility scale solar project and the first net metering project in Nevada, and then eventually working as an executive at a electric utility, and then getting elected to the Nevada legislature in 2016. It's all my energy and specifically clean energy and solar have been a passion of mine for a few decades now, and I bring that to the Nevada legislature.
Well, thank you for that, and I know you have a lot of personal energy as well. I've worked with you for many years as well, and it's always been a pleasure. So Assembly Bill 405 was passed into law in 2017 session as a solar bill of rights to ensure fairness to consumers who have rooftop in the solar industry. What were the compromises reached on net energy metering adoption with the state, and where are we now with concerning that, rates of reimbursement, these types of things, of excess energy?
Well, Assembly Bill 405 dealt with the ability of every person in Nevada to make and store their own energy. And there were a lot of things we had been doing that had started and stopped, but they were not necessarily guaranteed in statute. So the main thing that we did there was we put in place that if you interconnected and you signed a net metering agreement or an interconnection agreement, that term would be guaranteed for 20 years under statute. And the term of the price, the value of the excess energy that you sent back to the utility would be determined in that statute. And it started out at 95%, and through some large steps of capacity, meaning, as multiple people got involved and put, 80 megawatts onto the system, we would step it down. And it would eventually end up at 75%. So what that means is if you, and right now we're kind of right in the middle of that. We'll probably be to 75% by the end of next session. that means that the energy that you produce, that you don't use, that you then need the utility to take off of you, you get the 75% of whatever the retail value is at that time for that particular rate class that you're in. You get 75% of that value, and that's kind of where we're headed. We're almost there, and it was a compromise that we I worked with industry folks that do solar for a living, worked with consumer groups that want solar on the roofs, and worked with utility experts that looked at what the rate impact could be to other consumers who don't have solar. And that's where we came up with a compromise and a step-down approach, and where we're ultimately going to end up at 75%.
That's not too bad, Chris. Basically, when people look at making that investment in rooftop solar, they're looking at how long it's going to take to pay them back. And I know if it was full reimbursement, it was something like 7 years or so. How does that change the formula a little bit?
Well, there's a few factors that go into that: the cost of solar, the investment tax credit that's available, and then what the actual cost of your retail electric rates are.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you think about how a solar system works, you use 65 to 75% of the energy you make. You use that right there on your property. And so that kilowatt hours you never buy. So the value of that solar is whatever the cost of a kilowatt hour is. Let's say it's around 11 cents right now. The 35 to 25% that you send back, you would be getting something closer to 8.5 cents value for that. So it really had very little impact on the return on investment. In some cases, it had no impact at all. And if you're a person who has to send, you're a snowbird, for instance, and your house sits idle many months out of the year, and you're sending quite a bit of that electricity to the grid, and then using it at a later time in the year, then it has a greater impact on you.
Mm-hmm.
But for the average ratepayer, or for the average rooftop solar owner, it has very little impact. And it mitigates some of the concerns of the Public Utilities Commission and of the utility on what that rate impact is on your neighbor who doesn't have the solar.
Okay, so do you have any advice for people that are looking at the how this affects the ROI and what they should do if they're considering solar? And since we're listening to the music, we'll talk about that when we come back to Shades of Green on KDWA. We'll be right back.